Hello everyone, I'm Joe, this is Kristen. I'll be giving my lesson today to an advanced English learner. She's a sophomore who comes to me twice a week on language arts. I'll be using a simple introduction, or instruction and conclusion type lesson plan. The goal of this lesson is to learn transition words and then write a paragraph using those words. So first we'll start with our warm up. If you can't see up here, these notes say beginning, middle, and end. I broke the transition words obviously into those three sections. Kristen has transition words in her hand. She'll place each vocab word in the correct section. So we'll begin with our warm up.
Next would go in the middle.
Good.
During would go in the middle.
Good.
At last would go at the end.
Perfect.
In the meantime would go in the middle.
Good.
In conclusion would go in the middle.
Nope. Try again. Think about it.
In conclusion would go at the end.
Good. So conclusion is another word for summary.
Afterwards would go in the middle.
Good.
After would go at the end.
Try again.
In the middle.
Yes. Because after is telling you it's following something.
First, I hope goes at the beginning.
Perfect.
Before goes at the beginning.
Yes. Good.
Soon goes in the middle.
Good.
Second, third, or fourth goes somewhere in the middle.
Good.
Meanwhile goes in the middle.
Yes.
Later goes in the middle.
Good.
Then goes in the middle.
Good.
Lastly goes at the end.
Yes.
And finally would go at the end.
Yes. Good job. Perfect. So after our warm up, obviously I would like to work and get into our actual activity for the day. What I'm going to do for activity, I'm going to read Kristen a short story here. As I read the short story, I'm going to ask her to write notes in her own words, just as I read the story here. So George was a high school junior and a member of the marching band. When the football season ended, George applied for a job at the local grocery store. He went to the store, filled out an application, and waited for a phone call from the manager. 1 week later, the manager called, scheduled an interview at the store for Saturday morning at noon. George had all week to prepare for the interview. He knew he had quite a few things to do before Saturday. But rather than plan ahead and accomplish things during the week, George waited till Sunday morning to start. He figured he had plenty of time to do everything before his noon interview. First, George went to the dry cleaners to pick up his suit that he dropped off the day before, but the suit was not ready. George would have to settle for a t-shirt and shorts for his interview. Next, George went to the barber to get his hair cut, but the line was 2 hours long and they were not taking any more customers. Next, John went home to print out a copy of his resume, but the printer was out of ink. Before he knew it, the time was 11:45 and George had to leave. There was a long line of traffic, no parking spaces close to the store. When George finally showed up 15 minutes late in a t-shirt and shorts and messy hair, the manager told him to turn around because he would never offer him a job. So after I read this, I'd ask Kristen, what are some of the notes that you wrote down?
The main character's name is George. He was applying for a job at the grocery store. He was procrastinating. He had a couple things on his to-do list, He needed to get his hair cut, get his suit dry cleaned, and print out his resume. The interview was at noon on Saturday, and some of the transition words that I learned before in my warm up activity, some of the words that were used were next, first, and finally.
Perfect. So she listened well. She had notes down of what the short story was about. The thing that I listened for there, that she mentioned the words that she learned earlier in our warm up. She used the transition words there. So moving along into our activity, I'm going to ask Kristen to write a 5 sentence paragraph using those transition words that she learned that were in the story. And for time purposes here, we will pretend to give her 25 minutes. Use any of the resources she needs. I could print out the story for her. She can use myself to complete this paragraph. So this, yes.
Is there a rubric that I can follow?
Absolutely. So there would also be a rubric that I could go over with her, so she can make sure she completes everything to the correct standards. So this paragraph that she would write, the 5 sentences, would be her excuse me, her assignment for the day. Like I just went over, we'd use the rubric. We'd go over that for her to grade the paragraph. If a student needs any accommodations, I would provide them. We can extend the time. That would probably be the most common accommodation for a student to make sure that we meet the necessary requirements. And then in conclusion, I followed the English language development standards to help Kristen, an advanced EL, learn some transition words. Thank you. Yes.
High five.